and I'd like to welcome you to the City of Port Orchard Council Work Study Session for May 21st. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so if you don't mind, we're going to take item 3, DCD's work plan and comprehensive plan implementation, and move that to the first item. Mr. Bond.
All right, thank you. And when we've discussed the department work plan in previous years, we've done it in a two-step process. The first step, and Councilmember Diener requested this a number of years ago, I think it's a good exercise, is to check in on the comprehensive plan and see how we're doing towards implementing our goals. And so the DCD, along with Public Works, worked on going through all of the goals and policies and sort of updating the status of implementation for each of these. And I will say that with the adoption of the zoning code in March, I think a lot of the boxes are getting checked, as far as at least we've done something in the direction of that goal. Whether there's more that we can do down the road, I think that can be evaluated, but I think that a consistent theme throughout this is that you'll see that in 2016 we adopted new subdivision codes, and in 2018 we adopted new zoning codes. The couple of items that I wanted to touch on from the comprehensive plan goals and implementation status worksheet dated April 2019. First of all, our department has initiated sub-area planning for the Sidney Sedgwick local center. The reason that we've done that is we have a couple of large properties there and relatively few property owners. We also have a complex sewer lift station problem to solve at Albertsons, and so just due to interest in development, that has sort of risen to the forefront, and we are starting to put together a draft plan and are hoping to we're trying to outline what a plan is going to look like, and then go out and meet with this small group of property owners, and then also maybe do a separate outreach to the residents who are mostly in the 2 apartment complexes out there. Perhaps we can have an open house at each apartment complex and get something prepared that can be brought through the comprehensive plan process next year. So we are working on that. I will tell you, one of the things that we're exploring is creating almost like a little downtown strip on Sidney between Ruby Creek and the existing area of development. There's a couple of properties there, Kruger, and I believe it's Krieger, and I forget the property owner on the opposite side of the street, but it's all within a quarter-mile walking distance of the existing apartments there. But we feel that would kind of create the center of that community going forward, and we're looking at our previous Sidney corridor study for that area, but potentially designating that as a storefront street just for 2 blocks through that area to try to bring things out and activate the streetscape.
Can you help me locate
Yeah, I'm
that
having
in my mind?
It's
I'm
north of Sedgwick, but before you get to Ruby Creek, which is before Hovde.
North of Sedgwick.
It's where they put the gravel down and nothing else.
Yeah, Burger King, Montasushi.
Across from, so if you took a right and head towards Gray Chevrolet, about 3 parcels down, they've put a gravel driveway in because they're trying to keep their permit active, because they have to do something.
Right, they were
to
gonna
get their
put some sort of office building in there a while back.
Yeah, that's expiring, and they're looking at new plans now that we've changed the zoning. They're saying,
Yeah.
we think that a different model will work here, and we don't want to miss the boat on projects coming in before we have a plan in place. So that's sort of risen to the top of the pile, and with Stetson Heights being in fairly close proximity, and there's going to be a walking path from Stetson Heights into the Sidney Sedgwick area. We're looking at probably 1,000 residents, including Stetson Heights, that are in that general vicinity, and we think that 2,000 residents total in that vicinity would probably make that area function as a cohesive neighborhood. So we're just starting on that, and I've been meeting with Public Works staff and planning staff to discuss that, and so that's moving forward as our first centers plan.
Hey, Nick, did we ever get back to Yamamoto and let them know that was not a very likely proposition for annexation?
We did.
Okay.
I met with Commissioner Greedo and Terry Yamamoto about 5 or 6 weeks ago. just so that, I feel the only way that Terry's gonna be successful is for Commissioner Garrido to be an advocate for him, and she hasn't been to this point. And, she said she would get back to him in 2 weeks. I don't know if she has or not. And I don't know that it's gonna move forward, but she owes him an answer.
Okay, well, that kind of action is not on the docket.
Yeah, and regardless, I think when we're looking at the sub-area planning, we are going to look at possible expansion of that center to the south on Sidney, because I think there are some developable properties there. And the existing boundary and UGA boundary as it exists relative to the roads and the dead ends and critical areas, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's a few properties back there that are landlocked, and I think some coordination with the county is in order, and maybe if it doesn't happen immediately, we can have it as not a UGA, but as a candidate UGA for future expansion.
Okay.
Moving on through the report here, I'm not going to touch on every issue. I did want to mention that the county has initiated a countywide buildable lands monitoring program, and so they've scheduled a number of meetings between now and midsummer where they want to get to the point where we're reporting buildable lands annually, so that we're doing a better job of monitoring our actual performance in achieving our growth targets, and also monitoring the capacity of the county. And so we are participating actively with the county on that project. The next issue I wanted to mention, I will say, and Councilmember Chang mentioned this before the meeting began, he had a question about one of these goals, and there's a handful of goals in here that I still don't quite know what the intent is, or I certainly don't have funding or a plan for how to do some of these things. On page 3, you'll see that there's one that says develop programs to assist property owners with maintaining and improving their properties. I'm not quite sure what we had in mind when we wrote that. So if you have ideas, I would love to hear those, because that's one of those that says pending, which
You have to fund it with a bake sale.
Oh, yeah.
8.
Yeah, I had a question mark next to that as well.
yeah. So there's a handful like that we may want to look at. Is this really something that's realistic for the city to achieve going forward, and potentially, should we remove that from the plan unless we have something specific in mind? The other big change that I wanted to mention, and as we head into our mid-year review, I believe we tabled the parks plan update until the mid-year cycle to see how budget is doing, and obviously McCormick Village Park is open, the Pocket Park is looking great. I think the status, or the characteristics of our park system has changed so much since we've written the last one. I think that's becoming more and more urgent, especially as we're trying to get on top of maintenance and really identifying what the needs are for ongoing maintenance. We have goals on page 4 and 5 that talk about park and recreational facilities. It still has that comment about consider establishing a parks commission, and so I don't know how much of that we want to do. We certainly need to look at park impact fees going forward, but I just mentioned the parks that have been done up to this point. Another one of those goals that is sort of, it's a great idea, but we don't have a way to do it, is number 5 on page 4. It's work with civic and athletic organizations to promote sports programs and physical activities. We don't really have a department that has the ability to spearhead something like that, and so as part of our parks plan update, we need to explore what that means and whether that's something that's realistic for us to have in our plan, or if we're not committed to doing it, we should probably not have it in our plan.
That could change with the ongoing community center discussions.
Correct. Most of our environmental items are in order, with the exception of we have a required shoreline master program update that begins this summer, and we have to complete by the middle of next summer. And so we have some grant money, some of that was budgeted, and we'll be working on that over the next year. So our shoreline master program was last touched, I think, in 2011, and so that's a periodic thing we have to do per state law. Not a whole lot else here that I wanted to get into specifically, unless any of the council members have questions. I think we're all very aware of where we're at with transportation, which is, I think, don't file any more projects on Mark until he finishes Tremont, and then we can start talking about what's next.
He and Mike are both about ready to cry.
Cry?
Yeah.
I had a question. So on page 7, goal 19, talks about developing a waterfront historic overlay district? Have we talked about that in any recent times?
No, and there was a mention of it in our old code. It was a one paragraph thing, but there was no policy in support of it. So again, that's another item that, you know, I think what we did in the new zoning code was by limiting the heights on that core couple of blocks of downtown and not providing the additional flexibility. I mean, that was the downtown mixed use zone with the lowest height limits. I think we've sort of put in place something that's really gonna preserve what's there until we take action to change it to create the incentives for redevelopment. And so, but as far as specific to historic preservation, we don't have a plan moving forward to do anything along those lines. So if that's something that's important, we can certainly come up with some ideas and potentially discuss that at land use committee.
I don't know that it's important for me, personally.
Well, I think it's important in general, to some people.
We're talking about historic waterfront overlay district. And just from my observation, most of the buildings that would qualify down there would be better off if they were torn down
That's my.
than try to salvage them. The only one I can think of salvaging would be perhaps the theater,
And-
you know, or the brick building.
And the brick
next
building.
to it.
There's buildings that are, you know, but the market's gonna drive that.
Yeah.
They really are.
I think it's important to build from the outside in down there, because I think you don't wanna go in there and tear up the buildings that sort of set the character of your downtown, but I think as you add pieces to the ends, opportunities for redevelopment in between will happen more slowly, and we can kind of open up regulations where if something is really in poor repair, or we know that it has major problems, we can look at it on a block by block basis in terms of potentially creating some incentives for redevelopment there. So I think starting at the gateways is probably the right way to do
They
things.
did a nice job at the brick house too. I mean, that.
That's true.
that's-
I don't really consider those waterfront. I mean, and I know they're close to the water, but so thinking more about this, I don't know what waterfront buildings we have that are historic. And I'm just thinking like within a certain, you know, really close to the waterfront, I guess.
Yeah,
We got Hank's Sheet Metal on the waterfront.
Is that historic?
Oh, I think it is.
It's old,
Yeah, so
contaminated.
How you wanna define historic?
Okay, and that would be closer to the waterfront.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we need to, I think we should highlight a few of these goals that we're not quite sure what was
Yeah.
intended at the time, and sort of revisit that maybe as our, as part of our 2019, or 2020, is it already gonna be 2020? 2020 comp plan amendments, we can look at revising some of those. So any other items that stood out to council that you'd like to discuss on the implementation status?
There's one on page 9, and I think it actually folds into the downtown parking. Page 9, it's goals 6, 9, and 11, which is work with transit
Yeah.
to expand transit options and rider facilities. And the only thing I wanted to mention, and this may not be the right option, is that I know we've talked about some of the park and ride facilities not being full, but I think the flip side of that is that we have to make sure that the schedules for commuters are meeting their morning and afternoon goals, because I've heard from some of them say they can get through in the morning, they can't get through in the afternoon because they have to wait for an hour. So that's something we might want to consider.
What I do know, John could correct me if I speak out of turn here, that the $1 million that that's being put into bus service, it's a phased approach, and I think we're gonna see some service improvements. Is it next year, John? You know, and it's you can't just snap your fingers and hire, in particular in this economy, hire a bunch of bus drivers. You know, we gotta buy equipment and hire bus drivers. And the first phase of it had been downtown Bremerton. The phase we were just briefed on this morning was North Kitsap here later this year and into next year. And then we'll have some service improvements here in the south end of the county, I think later next year. And in particular, that, you know, tees up to the Southworth high-speed ferry too, and the improvements that are in service over that. Yeah. It's coming.
And we may talk about it more in the other item too, the downtown parking lot too.
Nick,
Yeah.
could I just ask a question on page 4? About the Kitsap County Housing District, or whatever that is, to clean up the homeless camps.
Which goal are you talking about?
The last one, goals 8 and 9.
Yeah, okay.
I hadn't
Page
really
4?
heard about that. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that? Maybe that went to another committee.
Well,
Yeah.
That's the letter we got from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brian-
Mark-
Brian Grogger.
Yeah,
Uh,
Mark
your
is
neighbor.
working that.
Is it with the health district?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're, the bid we got was staggering, like $30,000.
Do you know what the problem is to begin with?
The health district put us on notice.
Yeah, we got a
Yeah,
letter
right.
from the health district.
Yeah, there's about 6 sites down in there.
Where at?
Botcha Creek, down in the ravine.
What's that street?
Yeah, you just can't, I mean, some of it's not too bad to get to.
Kendall.
And
You go down
it's-
Kendall to the bridge.
Yeah, some of
There's
it's
evidence.
really steep.
Yeah.
And I tumbled onto a nonprofit that might be able to help us out, but it hasn't gotten very far. We just, we're up to our eyeballs in projects.
I-
And,
Yeah, I was thinking that the community service day,
guys, you're not using the money.
I was thinking community service day might have been a good time for that, except,
yeah.
I didn't realize that there may be needles in the bags, and so you don't want volunteers
Yeah.
picking up garbage. We didn't see any of that. We just saw a lot of evidence that there had been habitation. We didn't see any people there, but there was a lot of stuff there.
You went down there?
Yeah, we walked down, this is when we were doing the homeless count, so we went down Karcher
Mhm.
Creek, crossed the bridge, and saw a lot of stuff down there. And Brian was one of the moderators, so he also went down there.
So do we have a deadline on that when it has to be done, or?
No.
How come we're doing it?
It's our property. It's in the city limits and some of it's our property. So that we've, yeah.
What's interesting is, we had a parking lot conversation today before the KRCC executive board, or executive committee, and they were talking, Bainbridge Island and Paulsville were talking about encampments, and Bainbridge Island thinks they don't have any, they're not aware of any. And Paulsville
They're
doesn't
denial.
tolerate them either. Paulsville gets rid of them the minute they find out. But what Paulsville does is they have this mental health
We, we do too.
resource, and they go and work with them and, and do that, and then they don't tolerate it. It was interesting, and I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, I know all the way up and down Blackjack Creek, we've got encampments.
We have access to that resource too, and we'll be doing much more with that with our new police chief, I
Yeah.
assure you.
Yeah.
But the pushback we get is our public works folks don't want to, and we're getting
Oh,
pushback
yeah.
from the union about
Oh,
cleaning
yeah.
that up, and I'm pushing back on that. If we need, I mean, it's in the city, it's public property, and if we need to provide some training on how to deal with it, so be it, but, so I'm a little wrestling match there going on
I've had more
that
than
issue.
one conversation with Mark Burrell,
Mm-hmm,
because his home is not far from
mm-hmm.
at least one of the encampments. And it's, it's a concern for he and his family.
And rightly so.
Any other questions on that portion of this agenda item?
I support looking at these and going through them and scrubbing and shortening this list up.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
Okay, the big 11 by 17, it's not pretty. I didn't have a lot of time to put this together before I flew out of town on Thursday, but the color coding doesn't mean anything other than helping your line follow it across the page. The first handful of projects that are on there are our annual comprehensive plan amendment, which we do the once annual amendment, and then we could do a budget amendment if we have a capital facilities item that needs to be amended as part of budget adoption. So that's pretty straightforward. The Shoreline Master Program I mentioned already, we've got to complete that by June 30th, 2020. The Parks Plan update, if we're going to apply for any grants in the next round of funding at the RCO. We've got to have a plan certified by the 1st of April next year. So that, I think, if we get mid-year funding, it's possible to get a parks plan written in that time frame, but it's a challenge. I mean, it's certainly a lot of work to do. But I don't know of a specific project that we want to go after, because that funding source requires a 50% match, and we depleted our impact fees for parks on the McCormick Village Park project, and so it's going to take a little while to build those back up to where we have matching funds. So I think realistically, the 2 years later than the April 2020 window is going to be time to look at applying for a new parks grant.
Just following up on that too is, I'll get this emailed out to all of you guys. Last night I delivered a 2-page letter to the Public Facilities District about, our role, potential of us taking a larger role in the steps necessary for us to do that in the community center project. If that becomes reality, we're gonna want that to be part of our parks plan. And so we probably wanna wait. We need to do this, it's important to do it, but we don't wanna start that process and then and redo it. So let's, but I think if this becomes reality, we're gonna have to do a parks plan because it's gonna be an element of this.
Next on the list, I mentioned the centers plan that we're starting for the Sidney Sedgwick Center, which somebody needs to come up with a good name for that because I don't have one other than the existing street name.
Sidney Sedgwick Center.
So,
F squared.
there you go. Next, Bethel Sedgwick Design. We have our next round of PSRC funding eligibility is April 2020, and then again in April 2022. My understanding is that our goal is to not federalize any of these projects until we have a full design and then go after construction dollars. I think getting to a 30% design on a piece of that might be possible by April 2020 if we did a mid-year funding request or a mid-year funding budget amendment. But otherwise, I think we're realistically not going to apply in the next round, except for maybe Anderson Hill Roundabout.
And that would be TIB that we would probably go after for Anderson Hill Roundabout. And Mark and I are working through a process, and Beck is on the Transpol board. And if we're trying to get some money for Tremont, and if we're successful, we will probably, as a condition of that, forego the 2020 funding cycle, because we'll get a chunk of money now and not get it, and then say, hey, we won't apply in the next round, which probably really doesn't hurt us. We'd be challenged to bring forward a good project that would compete well.
Two of the next 3 projects have to do with McCormick Woods, Old Clifton Corridor Planning and Design. McCormick has actually hired Transpo Group to do some traffic study updates related to their entire master plan. And so I'm working with them and our consultant on coordinating the exchange of data right now, and that's feeding into our McCormick Woods development agreement that we've been working on negotiating in terms of an updated agreement. Sandwiched in between those 2 items is the buildable lands monitoring that I mentioned in the comp plan implementation report. Downtown redevelopment plan and downtown development agreement. This includes the 640 Bay Street project. I think we're all aware of what's going on the west side of downtown right now. The Community Event Center feasibility, the department's obviously involved in that.
That's a good
It's
question.
at the end of June for the purchase and sale.
That's when it expires.
Yeah, we're gonna have to extend it again, I think.
Because the PFD doesn't meet until late June. So,
I just wanted to be out ahead of it
yeah,
before it expires.
yeah.
Traffic impact fee study, we actually signed this contract in January, but we were waiting for some other modeling to be done, and so we're gonna move forward with updating, doing the 3-year refresh on our traffic impact fee study, and that'll be done by the end of this year. We've been working on an interlocal agreement with the school district. Sharon and I have been talking to Tom Adams, and I think we've sort of lost momentum on that, but we're still trying to get that done by the end of this year so that they will protect us if their school impact fees get appealed, because we're the ones actually imposing those. The Smart Cub Web Portal. We have a web portal that is now up and running. Our problem right now is the enormous amount of data entry that's required to actually get all of our existing data into that portal so that you can actually find information on there. I met with Ellen in the permit center the other day, and we think it's probably 2 solid months of one employee entering data to get that populated to the point that all of our permits would actually be tagged so that you can go online and see this information. And so right now, we've been so busy, we're hoping that if we get a little bit slower in the fall, we can actually put somebody on that task, or if we want to try to find someone to do that, we can. There's also procedurally, going forward, to actually have all this information populate, we have to have all of our planners and public works folks who review permits actually entering information as they review permits in a way that they hadn't previously, to get the information to display properly in the web portal. So it's a little bit more intensive than we expected in terms of actually, it's one thing just to have the portal and have some information on there, but to actually have thorough information that's right is a totally different story. And so we are evaluating what it's going to take to actually get this up and running. But the site is there, it just isn't live or visible to the public right now.
So couldn't we, like tomorrow's application, start a process where, and then if you never got to these others, we would process potentially these other ones the old way?
We could, I think we would have to make a decision to not have certain types of permits on there, and I think the real problem is that the public works guys are so buried right now with city projects that we're finding that that the bottleneck in our permit process is frequently getting public works to sign off on things, and they're the ones that have to also put this information in. So I think from a planning and building side of things, we can handle it. I think from a public works side of things, it's a lot to ask based on their workload right now.
And you're really talking about stormwater review?
We're talking about
reviews.
LDAPs, stormwater permits, building permits, planning
I mean,
permits.
for public works, their role in the review.
Well, they do civil plan review as well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's not just, it's water, sewer.
And that situation, yeah, if I haven't shared with all of you, Thomas Hunter took the Public Works Director position in Port Angeles. And so in the short run, that situation isn't gonna get better until we get.
Is this an opportunity for like a temp come in and help you get?
I think you have to be pretty familiar with SmartGov and permitting processes to know this sort of information that has to be input. I don't know that it's as much clerical as it is technical.
Well, you get more just clerical too.
Yeah. We can look into it.
Would that answer, Tim?
I,
If it's a temporary project, a 2-month, 3-month project, it sounds like it's more appropriate for a temp to come in and.
mhm. Yeah, we can certainly look at that. I've had this outlined to me in a memo that was sent to me a month ago, and I've also got to find the time to read that and figure out what
Maybe
we
the
can do.
county could lend us somebody.
I can tell you that trying to find that technical expertise, because I've looked at it, is expensive. Those guys by the hour are really expensive. The guys that know stormwater, for example,
Mhm.
which is the county's bottleneck in its DC review.
That was no.
What's that?
That was no then? You're not gonna lend us anybody?
Yeah.
So, other items on the list here, there's a zoning housekeeping ordinance that we're working on right now that should be back to you later this year, just to clean up some of the things we found since we rolled out the new code, mostly very minor stuff. Kitsap County coordination, obviously there's a new director at the county, and so I'm trying to meet with him and coordinate on issues between the city and county. And long-term, we've both talked about the desire to get a joint planning agreement between the county and the city so that the UGA is doing things consistent with city regulations going forward, so that if we annex, we're annexing things that have been built to comply with city standards. So we're having conversations regularly, but he's still getting his bearings, I think, so we're gonna continue working on that. I'm also monitoring the annual amendments of the comprehensive plan at Kitsap County, as well as settling our lawsuit from a year or two ago concerning their agreement to do a transportation study for the south end of the county. I think that agreement, we're behind schedule on that plan, but it is taking shape, and I just had a pretty productive meeting with their team about 2 weeks ago, and they've identified a number of projects in the UGA that they would like to take forward, and so we're getting somewhere with that. New building code adoption, that's gonna be due next summer, and so we're gonna have to do a light refresh on the building code chapters. The Public Works Department is working on all of their system plans over the next 3 years. 2 of them are active right now. We're doing the stormwater plan in-house, and so our department has been reviewing that for consistency with land use documents. They're doing a light refresh on the water system plan, and then the sewer plan is, I think we have a consultant on that, but I only just learned of this recently, so our department is getting caught up on that. At PSRC, Vision 2050 is taking shape. The mayor, Councilmember Ashby, and I attended a meeting today where we were seeing the preferred alternative and sort of what that looks like for Kitsap County and Port Orchard. I think we're gonna see a draft document in June or July, and then a comment period on the draft vision document, and so that's moving along, and we're very involved in that. We're also in the process of updating the countywide planning policies, as well as the multi-county planning policies, which are sort of the text of Vision 2050, and we've sent in comment letters on that. I've brought that to the city council previously, and we want to make sure that our changes are, that our voice is heard in that final document. And then I'm still attending the regional staff committee meeting over at PSRC. Finally, KRCC, we're doing the countywide planning policies centers work. They've written a new vision that we need to take through the process, and all of the cities need to ratify. And then finally, at the end of the biennial period, we're gonna start talking about our growth allocations for the city. And preliminarily, we were doing the math today, and I think Bainbridge, Paulsbo, and Port Orchard, it looks like we are gonna be splitting about 30,000 people over the 20-year planning period moving forward. I think that was the number we came up with, right, Mayor?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and I think that Port Orchard's gonna get the bulk of that because Bainbridge sounds like they probably don't want a ton of growth, and I don't think Paulsbo has a whole lot of land capacity. So we'll be discussing that here in another year or so. So that's what our department's working on. Is there anything that is missing?
Nothing going on.
You wondered how you'd have time for that.
And
I know it's early, but will we be able to influence that split? Because Bainbridge has chosen to sort of not grow, and Paulsbo has not expanded their UGA in forever. And so I feel like that's causing us to shoulder the burden of growth.
I think as we have those discussions, if Bainbridge Island is going to not accept the growth, then they need to agree to not to take any of the grant dollars that come for funding transportation. But how we get there, I mean, that's only fair.
Right,
If you're not gonna grow, then why do you need the dollars?
But one of my other comments on that.
They've already turned dollars away, so I think we're
Right.
happy with that.
Correct. Well, they turned dollars away for a bridge over 305, but they still want money for other things. But the Vision 2050, as I understand the way it's coming forward, the preferred alternative is based on high-capacity transit. And so the cities, the neighborhoods that have high-capacity transit are going to be expected to take more growth than the rural areas. And Bainbridge Island is a model for high-capacity transit because of the connection to downtown Seattle. So I don't know that even if Bainbridge Island doesn't want to grow, if that's going to be an appropriate solution for the region. Also, to comment on someone said something about Paulsbo's UGA. Paulsbo would like to expand their UGA
Oh,
because they would prefer, that's how I interpreted what was said. Because they're gonna end up, as their mayor said, looking like a mountain, and they would prefer to have a little more land. They only have 80 acres they can annex. And I'm not sure exactly where they're located, but I don't believe they're opposed to taking on more land.
That's a shift.
But I'm not sure exactly where they're looking, what, you know, which parcels are what they're looking at. You know, so it's interesting, just the region is expecting their, on Vision 2050, they're planning for another 1.8 million people. The four-county region now has about 4 million people in their county at 5.8 or close to 6 million people. And they're looking at giving Kitsap County 5% of that growth. And so the high-capacity transit cities, which Paulsville, Port Orchard, and Bainbridge Island we would share an allocation. And then Bremerton, being a metro, also has its own allocation. And then the county has a rural area, and Silverdale is kind of by itself, and then all of the UGAs that they're unincorporated. So it's a complete interesting process, but they're looking at 5% for Kitsap County out of 1.8 million, which is a little over 90,000 people. So how does that spread out?
And then
Yeah, it's
30,
not quite a third.
30% of that going to the three cities,
Going to the three cities, correct?
which is about 10,000 people a city.
And the other big discussion item today was that the county is concerned that they're not getting enough of that allocation because of how much they want to grow in Silverdale and in their urban unincorporated UGAs. And so they're asking for more growth, and that could either, you know, if that proposal was successful through PSRC, it would either come out of the other geographies, or it would come out of the rest of the region, and instead of getting 5%, it would be 5.5% or 6%. And so.
And then we would all have to
Yeah,
share.
and what I heard today was that at least some of the Bainbridge delegation would gladly give their allocation to Kitsap County. And so I think that we have to balance the need to sort of tell Bainbridge that they need to do their part and encourage them to provide housing, because they are very accessible to our biggest employment center in the region, while also trying to not let Kitsap County help Bainbridge Island help them out too much.
And because I can't help myself, the county, and they had 3 different classifications. They had Silverdale over here, because it's whatever kind of center it is, a regional center. And then they had the rural, and they had the unincorporated UGAs, okay? And their total, if we get 5%, if we get 90,000 people, their total is 40% of that, or 36,000. But they feel they need at least another 15,000 to meet their growth needs, which means they want another 41% over what they've already been allocated. So, you know, it's 15% of the 90,000 we're getting is how much more they want. So I have a hard time, and the other charts we looked at is where the actual growth has happened from the year 2000 currently. And Silverdale is just little tiny, but they want more population there, but they only have commercial within that area. They don't have the zoning or to have residential there. You know, it's kind of interesting. They're asking for stuff, but they haven't put things in place to actually make that happen.
And I don't know that it's our place, it's probably PSRC's place to
Right.
tell them no,
Right.
or what they can do. It's,
Yeah, and we may want to comment on their proposal once they've actually put something in writing and a request to PSRC, but they haven't done that yet, to my knowledge.
Yeah, so the question is, then would we give up part of our growth so that the county can put it in Silverdale or our UGA?
Yeah, or would we allow them to shrink our UGA to, you know, I
Right.
mean, if it comes to that.
Right.
more to come. So I gotta get this meeting back on track.
All right, did you need me to stick around for anything else, or can I go to sleep?
You can go to sleep.
Good night,
After
everybody.
After you get home.
No, after I drive.
No sleeping on the road. All right, so, you know, as, we'll back up to item 1 here, the plastic bag reduction. We were prepared to take some action this year. We thought that the legislature was gonna take action, There was a bill in the House and the Senate, and they went nowhere. And so, the text in the staff report, gives you the highlights of what the state was gonna do. Probably the biggest difference, they were gonna charge 10 cents a bag and require it. The other aspect I didn't like about it, then they were gonna tax that
Yeah.
and put that into the general fund, which I thought was kind of raw. But, you know, we just wanted some direction. Do we wanna take this back to land use? I thought we'd all, or economic development, I thought we were pretty well ready just to move forward and take action.
Yeah.
But,
I think what we were at was we were working with the county.
Yeah.
Talking with the county. We were ready to move ahead, and then all of a sudden came to a stop because we were waiting to see what the state did. My own personal opinion, I'm speaking only for myself, is I'd like to move forward with this in conjunction with the county. See what the final plan is. If there's a disagreement with them, then we can always do our own thing. But they were willing to do a lot of the outreach, and education for us, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly. So that's why I was talking about the benefit. But what I'd like to do is get this back on track, so we're not pushing this out, waiting for another
So-
state.
I'll second that, but without the 10 cent
Yeah, I'm,
at this point,
yeah.
and let the state be the bad guy on that.
Well, let private enterprise decide what they wanna do. If someone wants to give away a free paper bag, let them give away a free paper
Yeah.
bag.
Absolutely.
now the county's proposal is a little different. I mean,
Right.
other
No.
than the bag aspect of it, I thought we were comfortable. That was really the only difference,
Was the cost.
the cost, and whether we were gonna require it or not. And I'd heard from multiple council members that, you know, let the free enterprise take that
It's a
aspect.
business decision.
Well, I thought there was also
Government
some
decision.
aspect that the other cities were talking about it as well, so it would be a unified front throughout the county, not just, you know, a county deal and the city's not doing it or vice versa, so.
So Bainbridge has already done it. The county was moving forward.
Bremerton was, they were talking about it.
They and Paulsbo were dipping their toe in the water, and then when they heard about the state, everybody
Well, I
stepped
know,
back.
now that the state has stepped back, I wonder if that's not worth pursuing again to get the other three cities, us
We
and
could
also.
tidy up our draft and share it with them.
Well,
That's what we're
so,
proposing.
from a starting point, would we be interested in what the state had proposed?
It's cumbersome. I don't. No.
I think that we want to be careful that our ordinance isn't totally misaligned with what the state.
That's my
may come-
concern.
Because I think it'll happen.
I think the state will come in and make it more difficult than ours. Then let the state come in and do that.
Well, other than the 10 cents, what did we not like about it with the House Web Portal?
All of the sorting, so if you have this kind of designation, then you are gonna get charged. Can you imagine at the cash register, what that's gonna be like? It's very cumbersome.
What sort
Where
of
did you
refer-
sort?
Yeah,
Well, who will or will not be able to get the plastic bags? So if you have, okay, how does it go to? So if you are, retail establishments may not collect a pass-through charge from persons with vouchers or electronic benefit cards issued under the women in blah, blah, blah. So all of those different ones there could not be charged, you know,
But what I'm
Yeah.
hearing, Cindy, though, is that we wouldn't
are
doing
not
a
entertaining a
charge. And if the merchant wants to charge, we could have something in our ordinance that says they could charge. I mean, and
Yeah, at that point, they're selling a piece of inventory and it would be subject to tax
right.
if they choose to sell.
And I think that that's an important thing for me is for us to not manage the businesses.
I agree.
And if it costs them 25 cents for the paper bag, and then they want to charge 25 cents, that's a business decision.
Right.
And if they want to charge nothing, that's a business decision.
Right. But in terms of an ordinance, we don't want to be so misaligned that when the state does come forward with something, and I think that's likely, that it is now an additional business cost for that business to realign and recheck what they
Yeah.
had done.
But then at the same time, we would have some evidence to be able to lobby the state and say, look, we've done this is how it's working, we have real
They-
life, and we don't agree with what you're proposing.
But they've
because
got all that. They've got all these other
cities that are already doing it,
Been doing it.
yeah.
So so I think more importantly than what, I mean, maybe we don't wanna be too far from what the state, other than the bag charge. And the county is gonna be similar there. Do we want this back? I think we need to engage with the county again, this is the next step. Is that engagement happening at economic development, or is it coming back to next month's work study? What's your
Yeah,
preference?
I don't, does economic
Whatever,
development care?
I think whatever sooner.
Okay.
I can't remember
Okay.
our next meeting.
I'm
is.
down with that.
Work study.
Okay,
I think
well,
that's
we'll
supposed
just,
to be-
Work study, and who's gonna enforce this again?
it wasn't really, it hasn't been enforced anywhere. It's,
Ecology.
Well, they said a $250 charge of some sort.
we don't have any in staff to
I
enforce
know,
that.
I know.
And we're not
All
putting,
this.
I don't believe we're putting that in our ordinance.
Okay,
So
We're not
I think-
We just gave you what the state was doing.
because that
Yeah.
bugs me, because there's no way we can enforce this.
So I will, Brandy or I will reach out to the county and see if they can attend our next work study.
Yep,
Okay.
sooner, we ought to hear it anyway. Here.
So,
No, our economic development is before work study, because our economic is June 10th.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
I still bring it back here.
Yeah, I have no problem bringing it
Yeah.
to full
There you
council.
go.
That's-
Jay?
There are hemp plastic bags now, is anybody looking at, because they're totally biodegradable. And if something like that is available, why
Are they
couldn't
called
that?
plastic?
They're plastic bags, but they're made out of hemp and they will degrade in less than a year, I believe.
Well, they're
So they're compostable bags.
We have that information in here. That's the brown or green bag.
I think so.
so when I reached out to about half a dozen jurisdictions, one of the complaints was that, there was too quick of an implementation date. So that you're looking at a minimum of 6 months is what people seem to recommend.
I think
City of
this-
Mercer Island,
yeah.
over 4 months, and they said that was kind of a disaster. Tacoma, in the end, said after a year and change, they'd had 22 complaints. And most of that was about, some businesses still using plastic bags that shouldn't be, or they were mischarged and those kinds of things. But for the most part, what we heard, it was kind of a way of life, and for many of the places, there wasn't a lot of comment about it much anymore.
What, the communities I reached out to, their biggest concern, or said what you really need to do on the front side is the education.
Yeah, yeah,
Without the
communication was important.
education, that was just the critical piece.
And that's the county.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's where we need the partnership with the county. And realistically, because we put this on hiatus because we thought the state was gonna, I think the soonest we're gonna put this in place is the first of the year.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it'll take 6 months, you know, if we start pedaling hard on this.
But that's okay. I mean,
Yeah, but, yeah, let's move, I'm hearing let's move it forward and get going.
Port Angeles just had an interesting comment that a lot of tourists come to town and they buy stuff, but they don't come with bags to buy stuff. So that they're stuck with carrying stuff that they would like to have a bag for, so I thought that was interesting.
Was it Port Angeles also, or it was Friday Harbor, it may have been Friday Harbor, that, their major grocery store did not go to paper bags, they went to a thicker plastic bag.
3 million.
And that was not good for their marine industry,
Yeah,
they were finding
they
a lot of
regretted
it.
that.
Interesting. Okay, more to come. We'll bring it back after we reach out to the county. Okay, let's, you know, we got some testimony, let's talk a little bit about parking, and I can give some direction, to staff to make some, potentially some changes. You guys you've had a month to think about it. What are your thoughts on what we should do with parking or anything?
Well, I have always found the discussion interesting, and I emailed Kathleen and said, tell me the peak times that I should go and visit for parking and see if I can park. And she mentioned to me the peak times, and I didn't seem to have a problem finding parking.
Beck had a different
I
experience
had a
today.
different experience today, but I don't think that my experience would align much with, the requests that we have from POBSA. I had meetings in Bremerton today, and I was gonna be there longer than 4 hours. So my first choice for parking is the lot across the street. You know, I come up here to City Hall. Well, if you're not here at 7 o'clock and everybody's at work, there's no place to park.
It's like the transit garage, by
Yeah,
God, I parking pass and I can't use it.
So I thought, well, I'll just go down and use the paid parking. And there was not a parking space to be had. So I thought, well, if I go over to the 4-hour lot, I'm going to get a ticket. Because the parking meter lady was there, I could see her. And I'm going, oh God, what am I gonna do now? And I think, I don't have time to go home and walk down, you know. I can't go to a park and ride a bus down and catch the ferry I needed to.
Sounds like poor planning.
It was park, well, I was gonna park here, but being the resourceful person I am, I parked in front of Amy's because that's private parking and they're not open now. And then I got to the little foot ferry and I'm standing in line and these two ladies walk up and they said to me, they said, where can we park downtown for longer than 4 hours? And I said, well, normally you could park in that paid parking, but there are no spots there. I said, so if you go around to Amy's, you can park by my car, which they did. So but it took, I came away thinking maybe we need more paid parking downtown.
Or raise the price.
Or raise the price. The other thing, you know, nobody wants more paid parking and that's commuter parking. But if our community is going to be committed to, I don't wanna say to transportation, to public transportation, that is our public transportation. We have no other, we don't have a bus to get to Bremerton. We have to use that, our citizens rely on it. So how do we maximize that paid parking? You know, do we, you know, get in, you know, talk to kids at transit about encouraging more parking rides? Do we raise our paid parking? You know, I don't know, but
Well, that's my concern with it.
I've never had a problem finding a place to park to go into a business. It's just if I wanna use public transportation.
Right, and that's my fear with creating more 4-hour parking. We're gonna have more people leaving town because it's easier to park, you know, and go to Bremerton for meetings or go to,
Right.
you know, from a merchant perspective, I think, you know, I think that would hurt them. Just like we heard from the police chief, once you go to 4-hour parking, it's basically all day.
Okay, almost.
Well, currently, the way they implement it. I think you raised a good question of who are the parking patrons? Is it the shoppers? Is it the commuters? Is it, and I think that's a balance that it's hard to
I also
solve.
think there's a difference between the weekdays and the weekend,
Correct.
you know, so that also factors into that.
Obviously, the POBSA has their patrons in mind,
Absolutely.
which, you know, I can't blame them, but,
Oh, no, they should.
But we have to look at the whole picture
Yeah.
and not
yeah.
just that slice of the pie.
Yeah, now I missed part of the work study where they came and spoke. But what I had done is I too had emailed Kathleen right after we got the letter. And the letter indicated that their businesses were losing revenue. So my request to her was, can we have an idea of how much revenue was being lost because of parking? And what were the peak hours that their businesses had clients? And how long did the clients typically stay in their stores so that we could, you know, get some sort of idea? And I got no response to that. And then I went downtown and I surveyed the hours because the 2-hour parking that they were talking about is Monday through Friday only. It's from 8 to 5. And there were only 2 businesses that were open at 8. And that was the Brick House and Coffee Oasis. Most of them were opening at 10, 11, or 12. So I just, and none of them are open on Monday. So now you're just talking Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And some of them aren't open on Wednesdays either. So I was having trouble figuring out how parking, and I counted, I'm sorry, I did all this stuff. There were 75 parking spaces. And if they only can move every 4 hours, that allows for 150 cars. By going every 2 hours, you know, you double that to 300 cars. So I was having trouble with their reasoning of moving it to 4 hours, but then they backed off on that ask.
The biggest hardship I heard was the hair salon. Hair salon though is located on the water side, which is more convenient than the south side of the street to the 4-hour parking. I personally have never not found a parking spot somewhere downtown when I need it. Is it in front of the doorstep of the business I want?
Right.
No, not typically, but I typically walk a few blocks around, I don't have a vote, so I'm just sharing my experience.
I think the third audience, in addition to shoppers and commuters, is actually the merchants themselves, the merchants and the employees. And that's something that is the reason we had the chain parking before, because even now I'm hearing that merchants are parking in front of other stores, especially on Saturdays, which should be their busiest day. We aren't enforcing on Saturday. It's something, they need to educate their members, and I know that, I think it was Sue Ann said that not all of the merchants are members of POBSA. But that's part of sort of the problem with them, is that
I witnessed today, and I'm not gonna say who, somebody, the parking person went by, and I was a couple cars behind it, and they came out and wiped the chalk off their tire.
I can never find it. So it's on the side of the tire or the back?
Yeah, and I just shook my head.
Well, didn't they adjust their ask and ask us to leave Bay Street at 2 hours?
Yes,
that's correct.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
But they wanted the side streets to 4.
Which side streets? Frederick and
Frederick
Sidney?
and,
Sidney?
and,
There's not that much on Sidney.
yeah, it's,
But they also weren't even aware that we had merchant parking.
Yes.
for them.
well,
And they didn't, or they didn't want to pay
or
for
they
it.
don't wanna pay for it. And it's only a parking ticket and a half. I mean, it's $30 versus one parking ticket's $20.
But don't we have limited, or are those all used?
Well, we have a limited
No,
number, but
they're
not used to the
it's not a capacity, nor is the point. One thing I think we can do to help with the community, if we could do some outreach and education to the folks, about the park and ride lots. If we,
I would be happy to do stuff like that, but help me figure out how, because we are constantly doing it,
yeah,
and yet we're not able to get to everyone. So
Yeah.
the method for which we're using.
if, I know you've got a marketing person, if he got me, something I could push on Facebook, I would gladly do it on the city's site.
Could we have a little, like, some sort of a survey with like a link that maybe we could, I don't wanna be putting things on people's cars, but to get to the commuters, whether we just hand it to them, it's just a little card that log in here to take the survey, we can figure out where all these people live, and if there's a way we can analyze this,
We'll do that.
you know what I mean?
I would hand it out on the run that I go on in the morning and
Yeah.
afternoon. I mean, I just got.
So are you suggesting, Conan, that not only is this a survey site, but it's also an informational site? So you're kind of led to the information before you take the
But
survey?
also to help them determine, do we have a huge group of people on the west side of town that are parking in that lot?
Right.
And maybe we could find a way, that lot is full by 6:30 in the morning, right? And so it wouldn't take much to, from a service standpoint.
Well, there's a couple things that I would share, and you can better maximize the efficiency of your parking lot. And these are painful things, but you increase the parking for most, but then provide deep discounts for registered car pools and van pools, because they're
Right.
you're maximizing the efficiency of the lot.
Right.
That's a big one.
Right.
Um,
Maybe this data would help us create that if we knew where there's high dense pockets of people living close to each other that are going there at the same time. It's like, let's encourage that.
That's,
Spoon feeding tool.
that's great, and we can certainly try to do that. We work with major employers all over with their employees to try to find out, okay, you live here, can you guys carpool together? Generally, when the pain occurs is when people get willing to look at those alternatives, but you can stand there till you're blue in the face and tell people, here, look, you can go to work with Scott and save money. There's no incentive.
I would feel better if we're gonna consider raising the rates. I would prefer that we did some outreach up front and made people aware of other options and explored other options before we took that step.
And if it's full all the time, then I think we create enough pain because there's no parking for these commuters that they have to look at that secondary option. Versus if we just raise prices and price some of the population out, the others are, let's go park in the
When
parking
was the
lot.
last time the rates were raised?
2 years ago. A
Yeah.
couple years ago.
Nah,
I was on council, so it's
So
been.
was I.
I was the mayor, so,
Probably 3 years ago.
yeah, 3 years ago.
It went from $6 to $8. We raised it
Yeah.
like 33%.
Yeah.
It was right when I first became mayor.
But I would say also, my preference on the street parking would to leave all of the street parking 2 hours and not designate this one is 4 hours and that one is 4 hours.
It's consistency.
I would make it consistent that all of the street parking is 2 hours. And then I think POBSA asked for all of the back lots to be 4 hours.
That's correct.
And I can go along with that. I think it may hurt the library because had I wanted, because they have a 2-hour lot right next to the library.
Here's the rub on that lot they're asking us to change. It's vacant right now,
Right.
and there's a new tenant that just signed a lease on that space. The beverage company is moving into Amy's.
This is right.
And what impact is, I think, I mean, I don't know, I don't recall if I was on the council when we changed that to 2 hour. Was that done to, the restaurant industry usually doesn't need 4 hour. Correct
Unless
me
they
if
get
I'm
their
wrong.
hair done.
Unless they're getting their hair done.
I know the martini bar probably.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
But
touch
no,
that.
it only goes to 5 o'clock.
Well, I'll do whatever you guys wanna do. So, but you're right, that was the ask, that all the lots before.
They
That's a-
also wanted some side streets for, and I.
And that's a
prefer-
great argument for the restaurants. It is only till 5 o'clock.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a moot point at the dinner hour. Lunch,
Okay.
I agree. Lunch is burn and turn. If someone wants to go and shop and have a long dinner and do whatever, then
Yeah, and then it's after hours.
moot point.
Is there consensus then to change that lot to 4 hours?
Well, I
So-
think you raised a valid point that we've got a brand new business that's coming in with an expectation of what's it gonna do to them.
I don't know.
Maybe we should just hold tight for a little bit, see.
Okay.
I had another question, and that was,
And just do that, or are we talking about any other?
So one thing I've heard so far is that we're gonna we're gonna ask Kitsap Transit to perform some outreach and, education related to commuter patterns and then from there, we may consider raising the rates on the commuter.
And doing some van pool things.
Yes, that was the outreach and the
And you can
education.
provide a carrot and stick, basically,
Right.
so.
So we'll get that data and that information before we make any decisions about changing pricing.
Well, part of the survey work that we'll do with folks is to find out what we can do as transit to make it work better for them, so to help us kind of refine our service if necessary.
The SK ride's been very popular, that you have, the SK ride is very popular with the McCormick and the Ridge people. They've said that they've
With
taken.
the rich
The
people.
Ridge, yeah. The
Ridge,
McCormick Ridge.
Ridge.
McCormick Ridge.
Not Rich, Ridge.
McCormick Ridge.
We got
But-
one rich person over here, with two rich people.
Ridge people, yeah. They've said that worked very well for them in the morning and the afternoon. It coordinates a bus to an SK ride. So I know
But,
they've,
we have a bus that comes down, we have a park right up on Mitchell, and the bus comes by there every 30 minutes and syncs up with the ferry departures and arrivals, so. And I'll give you just a little bit of an inside scoop. You can go right over here in front of the community center up in Sidney and park, and the bus comes by there, takes you directly out to the ferry boat in time for that.
Okay.
So, I mean, there are,
Part of it's education, awareness of
they're
these
all
options.
I can almost walk it, yeah.
yeah, well, you could take the bus up the hill.
I had one other, I don't mean thought, but, part of the issues, we were talking about business being Monday, Friday, and then weekend. And I thought part of the frustration is about weekend, people parking because there's no enforcement. And is it possible to vary days for parking enforcement so that
Here-
it would
here's
be
the,
it,
here's
or
the
is
problem,
that-
all of our signs,
Right.
so we'd have to spend a
Okay.
Yeah.
chunk of money
Right.
re-signing downtown, because they all say Monday through Friday,
Yeah.
and the date, 8 to 5. And so that'd be an expense there, and then we have 2 employees that share
Right.
that job, and it's Monday through Friday.
Right.
I don't know what their schedule is, but it's 2 part-time employees. And so we don't have any benefit expense for either one of them. We start cranking up the hours, then we're gonna have.
I don't know, I suggested cranking them up more.
No,
than
I was,
50.
I was
Shift.
like shifting, if the merchants are feeling like Saturday, Sunday, cause I know some people park down there all day on Saturday.
No one's
And-
asked that, but they all point the finger
Right.
at the other.
Oh,
Right.
I've seen it,
Yeah, I know what happens.
And so, go ahead.
No,
I'm just throwing out a
finish,
thought, that's all.
finish.
That was pretty much it.
Okay, I've never heard them ask for anything specifically for the weekends.
I haven't either.
No, they ask for Monday through Friday. They had never asked for the
And that's probably
weekends.
more of a commuter
That is a
issue than it
commuter
is
issue, yeah.
with the
But
Saturday,
you
Sunday.
think on Saturday, the farmer's market takes up what, the
Mhm.
commuters are usually Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Right.
It's, I would say the day that, if I've got a challenge to park, cause if I was gonna go down and buy something at the farmer's market, and I didn't wanna lug it up the hill, it's tougher to find a place to park downtown on Saturday.
It is.
I
Than,
agree.
than any other day of the week. That's the toughest day because of that
I agree.
issue. So-
I also heard this week at a committee meeting that many merchants are no longer open on Tuesdays. So there's another change there, and also that there's going to be quite a few people moving around downtown shops.
Maybe that's
So
why our revenues are
there's going to
down.
be a big area where there won't be a lot of
They're open
merchants.
half as
So
often
we've
as
got a
they
lot of
used to
shit
be.
going on downtown again.
No, shift, shift, shift.
You and I have a hearing problem.
yeah.
I heard Rich.
I think we're more interested.
That was an F. So, I've heard no support for changing the times on the street. I've heard mixed, support for 2-hour and 4-hour to that lot by Amy's. So, what,
And that's all we're talking about.
Right,
So
the
far, that's
survey,
the-
reaching out with a survey and education is the
well,
first.
yeah, that's the only thing there's consensus on is the commuter aspect of it. But, and that wasn't what the merchants brought forward. That's what we've tumbled to. What is the design, so the only thing I've heard mixed review here is that lot by the former Amy's that's currently 2-hour. The ask was to change it to 4. I heard John say no. I've heard others say maybe, can I get consensus?
Isn't that a mixed time in there? Aren't
No.
some 2 and some 4?
No, some of it's paid
Paid.
and some of it's 2.
There are three rows,
Uh-huh.
2 rows in a row that are 2-hour, on the other side of this
It's
is
paid.
paid. I was looking there today too. I was,
Okay.
And mine was not necessarily, no, it was more wait and see.
Same
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
I think wait.
Okay. So wait, and 90 days.
Status quo.
Okay, okay, so leave it alone for the time being, but we may consider change.
We'll do the survey and
Okay.
farming.
Maybe not 90 days, maybe
Maybe get
60.
some input
Yeah,
again
we
in
come back in
another 2
July.
months or so.
All of us heighten our awareness of it, start paying attention, and the survey
When's-
results will come in. And
August,
When,
August,
is that when they're opening?
yeah, so 60 days isn't gonna do anything
No.
for us. I think we wait till the end of summer
Yeah.
and let them get opened and see what.
I don't think they're gonna need 4-hour parking during the day from a restaurant perspective, and the night it's a non-issue, so I don't think that plays a whole lot in this discussion.
the other thing that I'm just gonna say is I went back to some of the Roger Brick series that the city hosted, series, and the one series when they talked about parking, they said that you need 4-hour parking within 2 blocks if you're downtown. And so we're well within that.
Do we wanna try to, I guess, offer something to the merchants? They came through our request. If we do nothing, I don't know.
can we let them know that the survey is going to help inform?
It
Or
has
you
nothing to
think
do with their concern.
Okay.
Right, this is more of a
Well,
community.
it did indirectly,
I mean,
because I
we
heard,
could either do nothing and wait and see, or we could change this for 4 hours and take the 90 days to see how that's working. And then we're throwing
I would
them
take
a
the
bone.
summer, I would leave it alone. If we're gonna change it, I'd leave it alone.
Yeah, that's what I mean, that's what I mean, you could test it,
Yeah, at
You
least
can tell
maybe
them
this
we're
year.
watching.
test their request.
But it's gonna cost us to
Changing
test their
signs.
request.
Yeah.
A couple of signs
There's
there.
only that one lot though, how many signs are there?
How much?
Oh, there's
but
maybe,
it doesn't.
3 or 4
yeah.
on that lot. Couple $100.
Yeah, I think it's more, I mean, I think they're more.
Is there-
I think there's maybe 10.
We could make that section in front of Amy's paved with a 2-hour or 4-hour limit.
Yeah, actually. You know what, that's,
free to pay.
I don't like that idea.
Actually, they didn't say it had to be free 4-hour parking.
I think that was the intent.
I think that's the
okay.
intent. They're not looking for another obstacle of people coming downtown and shopping.
But actually,
Kind of.
I would disagree when you said that we're not giving them anything. I think the outreach to commuters is big, because I heard from the POBSA's presentation that night that they didn't care about any of the commuters. They wanted it all to be merchant or shopper parking.
And
That
I
was
asked
not their
them about,
concern.
You know, did they get flack when we raised the price because commuters are threatening they're never gonna shop?
Well,
They never see them.
yeah,
I
I mean-
mean, yeah, they're indifferent about that. You're right.
Well,
Seemed.
well, I guess I have opinions on that, because if you're a commuter and you're on your way home from work, what are you going to stop and shop for?
Exactly.
Milk and eggs, right? Pick up the bread, pick up the milk, you know, whatever.
Nothing's open.
Well, nothing is open,
Well, at 5:30, when you get off,
Yeah,
6
right.
o'clock when I get off the ferry.
right,
nothing open.
but you're not going to shop for collectible items, which is basically what's downtown. And the restaurants are still open, so if someone wants to go eat, they can still do that. I don't see that the commuter,
It's different, it's not their clientele.
it's not their clientele at all.
I agree, but in the past, whenever we've increased the price of parking for commuters, that's the first thing they're gonna come in threatening. We're not gonna shop in this town anymore, we're just gonna get in our cars and get out of town, we're never coming to, you know, you hear that as the threat. Now, is it a real threat? I agree with you, I don't think it is, and I've asked a few of the merchants downtown, and they agree with us that
Yeah.
they never see the commuters.
Well, the demand's so much higher. I mean, 4 years now, I've been commuting occasionally. I mean, those morning foot ferries from here to Bremerton are twice as busy as they were 4 years ago. I don't have the stats to back that up, John, but
very
it's-
busy.
It's
yeah.
significantly busier,
They're busy.
which is why that lot's full.
One turned away people.
That's why, you know, I would be a real advocate when we start talking about commuters is doing things to maximize the efficiency.
Yeah.
Right, I would
Let's
agree.
get more van pools and car pools, because that's more bodies in the same number of spaces.
So the next time I have to do this, I'll swing by and pick somebody up.
That's it.
Just a stranger.
All right, so
So do you wanna have somebody look,
I'm still struggling here.
do you wanna look at how many signs are down there? And bring it back?
I don't think that's,
Yeah.
I don't think that's an
I don't-
impediment.
Personally, I don't think we play with it. I think that we decided to do a survey, see what we could do to maximize the computer parking, which is what we feel is a concern, and wait until that's done and then make a decision.
Okay, so I'm hearing 2s to say, leave it alone. I think Sean would like to change it to 2, to 4. Cindy,
Throwing it out
I
there.
think leave it for now.
3, 4, we're done.
Move on.
Okay,
Well, you know,
But
it'd
we
be
could,
interesting
once
also,
we get the survey.
say,
we can
yeah,
change
we're
it.
gonna revisit it, but right now, we're not gonna make a
And we're
change.
gonna see
Okay,
what the new.
and I'll reach
you know,
out to
I
Kathleen
would
tomorrow.
like us to throw something onto the merchants as well, because I think this whole issue of the merchants parking, they need to reach out to themselves and their employees to make sure that they are aware of. And when they fill up that merchant parking, then they talk about
So what I'm hearing is after the merchant lot is full, the council would be more sympathetic.
Reasonably full,
Yeah.
whether we have to have it 100%, to just show that they're committed to doing, solving this problem.
So council would like to see that merchant lot higher, better utilization,
utilized.
better utilized.
And not all of them seem to be aware of it. Or they profess not to be aware of it.
We could just do an informational flyer.
Yeah, we could
Why not?
produce something and have them
Distribute
tack
it
it to their
downtown.
employees' forehead.
Well,
All right, Michelle, are we ready to roll?
Anybody else want
So-
to be sent to?
Good,
I'm
thanks, Jay.
good. We're gonna be out of, I'm gonna be out of
No, I
here
know.
in a couple minutes.
I'm not timing you.
Okay.
Lamb.
All right, so we, I think this was our most successful community service day. I can't remember how many sites, I guess we'll count them as we go through them. 250 people came out. I was thrilled. The site I was most concerned about was Van Z. We put 16 10-yard dump truck loads of topsoil. You can see those piles on that field. It's always been clay. It doesn't grow grass with the darn. A few years ago, we put an irrigation system in, but the grass doesn't grow. So we put topsoil down, and so we delivered it, and I was concerned that we wouldn't have enough volunteers to perform that work. Oops, doggone it, the thing's fast.
yeah.
There were probably close to 35 people working that site.
Yeah, and they showed up with a mini excavator
Yeah.
and that gator.
And
And-
the data was very helpful.
And in 2 hours, it looked like that.
Yeah.
It was incredible. That was primarily the Latter-day Saints that came out to, it worked at Van Z. So we've got grass seed on it. I would say by midsummer for sure next year. We did this same process at Clayton Park last year. If you haven't been there lately, we have lush park with great grass. It's, Cindy, I'll gladly share these pictures and slides, the originals if you want them, but you can take pictures of that if you want. Really? Come on.
It's slowed down, huh?
Where am I pointing? The projector?
To the, it should,
No. I'm trying.
Do you want me to do it? I'm closer maybe.
Is it on?
You can just advance them for me, maybe? There we go. McCormick Village Dog Park, we did, you can see all the piles of wood chips. The wood chips came from our vegetation, chipping vegetation on the side of the road. Beck and I worked towards the end of the day, and with the Latter-day Saints spreading the chips all over the larger dog park out at McCormick Village Park. Okay, Michelle? Seems like I'm missing a whole bunch of slides here.
What, the blackberries,
The Scotch broom, it's in here.
oh, Scotch.
We also did some topsoil there. That's where we ran out of steam. We didn't have enough volunteers to get through all of this, but we did a bunch of overseeding at McCormick Village Park too, on the bare spots and the grass. And that seed went down a couple weeks ago and is taken very well. So go ahead, Michelle. Here we are, pulling Scotch broom. We borrowed a couple of Scotch broom pullers from, I think it was the Conservation District. Lent them to us. Typical government job. We've got one person working and 3 standing around supervising. But go ahead, Michelle. And you can see the root balls and the amount of Scotch broom they pulled. They worked for hours pulling Scotch broom, and there's a lot more to do. We've been having the community service folks continue that work because we don't want this stuff going to seed and all over in the park. All right. We did 30 yards of bark at Cedar Heights Junior High, or middle school now. Spruced up the landscaping there. One of the things I do, really, at least early on during the day too, is run around and make sure we have enough volunteers. When I first showed up, we had 2 people at Cedar Heights. So then I ran to the high school where we had 50, and I said, hey, can you half a dozen, could you go to Cedar Heights and kind of balancing the workforce out? So huge improvement. It looks great. School, there's They did a bunch of cleanup at the high school. They had tons of people. A lot of high school kids showed up, wanted to help spruce their school up. And go ahead, Michelle. We did a beach cleanup. Bob Zach, he was down on the beach underneath the bridge. At a Turner Park, we had a bunch of Rotarians show up. You know, if you haven't been down there, these pictures don't do it justice. It looks great. Go ahead, Michelle. Down by the bridge. There's a couple of Rotarians, maybe a council member. Oops. Was a little fast there, but okay, go ahead. We put bark along the pedestrian path as you're coming out of the Marina Park. Go ahead. Around the grandstands, got beauty barked. Go ahead. In front of the grandstands. Go ahead. And down here at the boat launch, that's behind the restrooms, and then that's the pathway heading down towards Kitsap Bank behind the boat dealership. We helped the merchants plant all the flowers downtown. Volunteers did, and I stopped in, thanked all the Latter-day Saints. They invited me to lunch. I was a little late, but got there, and I know you guys. This is what I did most of the day, was drive around and post for pictures with people. So that's Kelsey. I think her name's Kelsey Zach. She's her daughter of one of our Rotarians. But you know, we had various community members, Rotarians, and the Latter-day Saints, and all total, I estimate about 250 people. So, and I think it's just phenomenal that our community comes out and supports us. We couldn't get this work done in a year with our public works staff, and it just really makes such a difference in the beautification of our parks and all over downtown. I think next year we'll rotate back in city. It's been 4 years. This was the 4th year. The first year we did City Hall, so we'll come back and do City Hall and the school district. So the port participated, and they provided all the materials downtown. The city participated. We provide the materials, and then the school district provided materials at the schools, 2 school sites.
Kitsap Bank had a huge turnout as well.
I'm sorry I missed them. My slide. You are absolutely right.
Maybe over 100 people.
They had about 100. You're right. I am.
Some photos I can see.
I need to fix my slide. Yes, yes, I'd love some. Yes, they did primarily the beach cleanup, the flowers, and the downtown activity.
Had a tournament, they were doing this.
Yes.
And we also did all the scotch broom removal along the banks of
Blackjack Creek.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
I am totally remiss. I forgot about the bank. Shame on me. That's all I got. How many minutes was that?
I didn't count,
It was less than,
Seven.
it was squirrely?
Sterling.
Sterling?
I'm out this room.
No, bring that to Rotary.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to see.
Okay, and I gotta add obviously Kitsap Bank to that too. I missed it. Because I want them to, I mean, it was great. The merchants participated, because they do flowering, planting every year. Kitsap Bank wanted to do a day of service in the community. I said, heck yeah. And so the more the merrier. They did. All right, I got one. We are so doggone close. It's incredible. We've paved the last couple of days down at the Rockwell Park. We're gonna be done in the next 2-3 weeks tops.
Did they pave the whole
Yeah,
pathway? Okay.
oh yeah,
I walked it today.
it's awesome. And we need to do a little bit more with site furnishings when we get it all buttoned up, but I'd say it's really cool. And so I need to offer our delegation some dates. So how do you guys feel about, we're either gonna need to be here in these couple dates in June or after 4th of July. So I'm looking at right now, first June 20th or 21st. That'd be a Thursday. Before that, we won't be done before that. That's the soonest as we're gonna have it done. After July? Okay, I'm hearing after July.
As long as, you said, you mean after July? You're talking about
After
August?
July 3rd.
Okay,
The only dates I can't do is I can't do July 12th or 15th.
13th.
Can't do July 12th
Through
15th. Excuse me.
I heard
Pick a day.
I know, you're right.
Just pick a day.
Okay, I'm trying,
Things are gonna change in the next 6 weeks anyway. Get it on the
I just,
calendars.
I can't even work with that week, I'm sorry, guys.
Which week?
The 8th, the week of the 8th.
7:15?
I could do the 12th.
I can't do 12.
Yeah, that's the day you couldn't
I
do.
can't do 12.
Okay,
15.
The week of the 15th?
okay,
I
we're
can't
just,
do that, well,
Just pick a day, I'm telling you.
20?
There's no way we're
20.
all gonna be able to.
20?
I'd really like to do that 20th, 21st
June?
in June. I'd like to cut
I'd do
June 20th or
21.
21st.
21 over 20.
Where are we at right now? 3 weeks. We paved, it has to cure for 3 weeks on the striping. 2,
You're a
3.
month out. You're exact, today's the 21st.
Okay, maybe we could do the week, the 13th or the 14th?
okay.
14th, Flag Day, we can all walk out the back.
Okay. Okay.
a drum and a fife?
I have to I got in trouble for only giving them one date last time. Because they want to, 13th and the 14th, could we,
Of June?
of June?
14.
Right now.
Okay. I will get back to you.
Okay,
I have to offer a couple of dates too.
Well, don't put down June 13th.
Okay.
Are you
For-
going to transpose that day? That's transpose.
That's right,
It's in the morning, but we would do it at the end of the day, like 3 o'clock. So my first choice will be the 14th, but if
what about the
Jesse,
17th?
17th.
It's a Monday.
I mean, just give multiple days, I won't suggest.
I've got a conference. I could do it earlier in the day, like midday. I've got a committee meeting for AWC
I mean,
and
just 13, 14, or 17, if you gotta give them multiple days, that's all I'm suggesting. We can live with it, time it.
okay, midday if it's on 17th. So I'll start,
13th in the afternoon, 14th anytime, and 17th in the morning, it sounds like.
yeah, midday, yeah. Okay, so I'm meeting with Josh. We're gonna get, presentation from our lobbyist next Tuesday, and we're gonna get a presentation also from, Bonnie, what's Bonnie's last name? Beck? Tufts, from, Human Services at the county, talking about the CBG, one of those acronyms. Thank you, money. We have a,
in the morning?
Oh,
block grant funding.
CDBG.
Thank you.
When is the
CBD
I
is something
can't, I
else.
can do either,
It's 17th and 18th.
17th and 18th? So 17th,
Probably isn't a good date.
probably not, is that,
Yeah, I'll try to make it happen on the 14th.
other than if you arrange it in the morning, you can
Right,
have
here
them
it
come down and
does
help celebrate.
There we go.
If,
So coming over on the boat.
The important one, Jesse Young
that was my.
pretty much single-handedly got our money moved from the 2021 biennium to now. So that's how we were able to pull this off. Otherwise, this section of the pathway would have got built,
Yeah,
not for a few more years.
well, not just necessarily one,
So-
Carrie, the code
Middle of-
enforcement guy.
He's kind of checked out already.
June.
Depending on what's available. That was my only.
Mid-June, or here, no,
Except for.
what month, we're in May.
We're in May.
Mid-June.
And,
A consultant right now. Yeah, I met, if you guys indulge me 5 minutes, I met with the finance committee meeting today. I'll be bringing forward it's not realistic that we're gonna hire somebody to fill, Thomas had too much on his plate. And we're gonna hire 2 people to replace Thomas. We're gonna separate utility management from the supervision of the shop into two jobs. It wasn't the management of the shop wasn't being done effectively.
it's not enough time.
And there's plenty going on in our water system, from wells development, sewer lift stations being rebuilt, and this Foster pilot program. And so somebody coming in new just can't do all of that. And so, finance committee was supportive of that. I was gonna bring it back next Tuesday, so just bringing everybody else up to date since you're all here, and yeah, you asked about Thomas, so
Okay.
that's the plan.
Yeah, well, I think they're good to go. So, in the spirit of a good-looking community, I think at the economic, and development meeting structure behind
Oh, right.
7-Eleven, and kind of clean up that blight, the tire, and the 2 tires and the rim, and.
You mean the little
sheets
shack in
and
the
stuff.
water?
Huh?
The little shack in the
The
water?
shack in the water, and pull the conduit off, and they said they would do that, but it's still sitting there looking ugly.
Okay, that's
It's
James,
It's picturesque.
James.
Since you mentioned appearances, could we reach out to the county and see if they can do something about that white plastic that's on the roof of the Gibbons Community Center? I mean, I'm surprised they have tires up there holding the.
Well,
plastic
it's, 'cause the roof is leaking. Yeah.
on. Get a roofer in there, fix it.
So
You know,
you're trying to fix it.
Uh,
Pretty tacky with-
Patch.
They could use blue tarps to maybe,
I'm gonna commend Public Works for
it's
removing
just
that
white plastic.
ugly
It's
furniture and
Like a plastic tarp or.
I'll have,
like rolled out plastic or something.
yeah, it's on the awning over the door. They've got
There's
the,
2 sections there that
Yeah.
don't have it on.
And also this week's the city, they wanna call it recycle day, where Public Works is out. picking
Yeah.
stuff up all
yeah,
week.
it's.
Spring
commu-
cleaning.
Spring cleaning,
Yep.
yeah, it was
Oh,
today.
this week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it.
What's your collection?
When's your garbage day?
It's today.
Monday.
No, it's gone.
My first time I actually nailed
Bring
it.
it over, mine.
And I
Yeah,
can,
mine's Thursday, so you
if
can
you
bring
didn't
it
hear
over
it today,
tomorrow.
the sweet sweeper was out at 3 this morning.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, I did.
You bring it to mine.
But they did a fine job all downtown, so.
Bring it to Rob's
Thanks
house.
for looking into the port.
Yeah, I got on my list. I'll call James Weaver tomorrow. So, all right, anything else for the good of the order? Thank you.